This is going to be a short tutorial just to show you the main features of synthQ that sometimes go overlooked. So you notice that there's a big blank area above the keyboard here, and I'm just going to load up the default preset. It's the arpeggiator. So as you've noticed, since I've chosen a preset, it shows me a bunch of different controls in the middle here. So each one of these little sections is called a module, and this scrolling section in the middle here is called the module queue. So this is where you can build each sound just by selecting which controls you would need for it, and then you can rearrange them by tapping them and dragging down and then panning left and right, or you can remove them by tapping up. Just so you know, removing them from the queue doesn't actually remove its effect on the sound, and it goes the same for adding modules to the queue. So this top menu up here shows all the different modules that you have available, and the ones that are lit up are the ones that are currently active. So some of them aren't lit up because they're not turned on yet. And as I was just about to explain, since you can remove modules and add them as you see fit, it's just so that you can customize your control layout. It doesn't actually affect the sound. The only thing that affects the sound is if you edit modules by changing the values here, for example. So if I go to that's already made, I can do things like see what modules are available, change different things, or I can clear all the modules with this clear module button up here, and then just edit each component one by one as I go. What I like to do when I'm starting to design a sound from scratch is there's a reset button here. This third menu bar is called the preset menu. So what I like to do is reset to a sine wave, and it gives me just kind of a starting from scratch point to build a sound off of. So what I'm going to show you now is how to do a modulation. So since this is a semi-modular synth, what it means is that you can hook up different parts of the synth, different modules that are modulation sources, and you can hook them up to destinations with these virtual cables. So if I tap the source here, it shows these two drop zones here to hook up a modulation source. So if I want to use this envelope filter with like an ADSR or an LFO to control like the filter cutoff, I would just hook it up like that. Oh. So I have the LFO as a modulation source, and then I have my filter turned on. I'm going to select a square wave so that you can hear it, and then I'll change the intensity with this range slider here, and then I'll turn the LFO on finally with whatever LFO shape you want over here, and then its rate can be set over there. And so now you can hear that the LFO is affecting the cutoff frequency. It would be the same thing if I were to turn off this LFO. But now it's doing it automatically because you're using a modulation. Here's a couple of other modulations you can do. This one is a unique feature of synthQ called the XY keys. What they do is they turn each key into, reset to a sine wave again. They turn each key into an XY pad. There's a feature up here on the keyboard that lets you kind of like, you can really see is if you use the XY keys modules as a modulation source, you can hook them up to different parts of the synth for different effects. So for example, if I were to hook up the vertical motion of the key to the tuning of an oscillator, and I turn up the range here, what's going to happen is the pitch will raise up and down as I drag my finger up and down on the key. So that has some, you can do some pretty cool effects with that. If you wanted to do something like a vibrato effect, I would do the same thing, but maybe hook up just the fine tuning. And then you can wiggle the keys to do a slight pitch variation like that. It's pretty fun to use this feature and hook up vertical motion to like the filter, for example. Turn up the resonance so you can hear it a bit better. And I can also use the same modulation source on multiple mod bays. You have up to 8 that you can use. So I can have the vertical motion of the key hooked up to the filter cutoff, but I can also have it hooked up to the FM. You notice that with these kind of oscillator or filter modules, they dim or light up depending on if they're on or not. So the FM was just off, bypassed. But if I want to turn it on, I just select the waveform. And now the FM amount kind of is affected with the vertical movement of you can get some pretty gnarly effects with the FM here. So going on to the saving presets in the preset menu, if you want to open up all the different preset folders or groups, you click on this like blackened title here, and it shows you stuff like basses, pads, percussive effects, and then you can select them and then see the individual presets in that group. Or you can just open the menu by tapping on the preset name, and then you can browse the presets like that and tap outside of the menu to close it. If you want to save your own sounds, you can either make changes to the sound and then the save button will light up. It'll give you a warning if you want to overwrite the current preset. But if you're just making small changes to an already existing preset, it's also nice to just press this button here. It's like a save as feature, and I'll just add a 2 to it to say that it's different. And you can create new preset groups by using that button there. That's pretty much it. There are 3 keyboard modes. You have polyphonic, if you want to use multiple keys at once. Kinda, they work better for bad sounds, like chords, and there's a lot of sustain. And then the monophonic for playing one sound at a time, and you can use this gloss. The amount of portamento or gliding some other features, the full screen, you can resize each key and then click on the resize button, resize the width or change the amount of octaves. You can go up to 4 octaves. So exit full screen and exit resize. And then there's also matrix key mode, which just makes all the widths of the white and black keys equal. I'm gonna go back to a normal size now. So those are pretty much the main functions. You also have 2 effects bays here. Each effect has a different parameter. So I think my main advice would just be to experiment with each of these modules, figuring out what they do with the sound. What I like to do, like I said, is I just start with a basic sine wave and then add each module individually to see what they do to the sound and see what I can come up with. There's also a new feature of this synth is the sequencer object. It has a built-in arpeggiator if I switch this ARP button on or off. And you tap this title bar here to go into like select pattern mode. And I'll send you a link to a more in-depth tutorial of the sequencer because there's a handful of features to get into with that as well. So anyways, that's it for now. And thanks for your interest in synthQ.